Okay, so a workshop for writers.
Are we on?
We are.
So this workshop for writers, one took place in New York and the other in D.C. And because it was Albert Murray, I think maybe Stanley Crouch and Martin and me. And Willis knew about this, so when he said, "I'm going to be away when this thing is in Washington," and said, "Would you like to stay in my apartment?" So I was, very pleasantly surprised, and I said, "Of course, yes, I'd love it if you want to." So he gave me access to his apartment, which was very conveniently located to where our activities were, and it was a nice. It was really a kind of typical bachelor's apartment, but it was very well kept and everything, except for one thing. Willis was a very heavy smoker. He was close to being a chain smoker. Part of it was, I told him once, I said, "Willis, you're really smoking a lot." I said, "No," but he said in part he was doing it for his voice. In other words, it kept him slightly hoarse, which was good, the vocal quality on the microphone, which he was very conscious of. He was really a superb microphone radio guy, Anyway, he gave me access to his apartment, and like I said, it was nice and well kept, clean, except because he was this heavy smoker, there were ashtrays, and the ashtrays had a layer, of ash in the background, and they smelled. So first of all, for two reasons, I decided to go through cleaning them. One was to do him a favor, because I felt he shouldn't have that stuff sitting around, and the other was to get rid of the odor of the cold tobacco. And I had stopped by then. I smoked too much, but I was never into it as heavily as he was. So I cleaned these ashtrays, which, believe me, was quite a job. Went out and got some scouring power. So that's what I remember. And when he came back, he did thank me for doing it. So that was one part, and I think that was what killed him, really heavy smoking. There was with this controversy about the festival, I picked it up in Downbeat. I mean, I didn't pick it came in anyway, regardless of me, but I responded to it as editor, so I gave Willis some space, and I also did an editorial about it. I forget this journalist's name, but he was a fairly well-featured guy on the Washington Post. We did a nasty job on one of the people that Willis was very fond of, and who was at the time and still is underrated, was Ira Sullivan. And Ira was on the festival, which was unusual. It was really nice to see Ira outside of Miami, which is where he was rooted. And of course he had originally started in Chicago, and occasionally Joe Siegel, who was an whole other story, would bring him to Chicago. So that was Willis, who never really got to be on the radio in his homeland. I mean, you would hear him emceeing at Newport, and you would hear him occasionally, but he never got a really prominent radio personality in the United States, although he was known to be admired abroad. It was a strange situation. And like I said, he was a very caring guy. He really cared about what he was doing. He cared about the music, and about being as informative without indulging in propaganda, but he was aware of his role there. But his role to him was to promote the best in jazz, and in part he was also, there was an educational component. He was so good. I mean, he would be, if I did a bit of radio, actually more than a bit. I mean, the Institute had a show on WBGO for 35 years, and I wasn't the only one, but I did a lot of radio. Started on BAI. So I really admired what Willis was so good in the way he paced and programmed the show, and what he said just enough, not talking too much, but always saying something that was worth hearing. So, I mean, I think there was some attempt of giving him more recognition. He did have some write-ups, and I don't know whether the New York Times did anything on him. I would imagine they did. But it was still so frustrating for him. I know when that CBS show, Jazz Music with Friends, when that didn't work out, it was a real blow to him. It was a real disappointment. So I don't want to present Willis as a tragic figure, but I always felt that he didn't get his due, He should have had here, I mean, they met him with flowers and everything in the Warsaw airport and all that, but what does that mean?